Hello, and welcome to another episode of Race for the Future. Concerns about justice in this world are never a laughing matter. And yet, comedians like Chris Rock and Dave Chappelle are able to amplify the voices of concern with humorous approaches which are often gritty, approaches which are often very raw, but approaches that place the realities of society in our face in a way that a serious approach can often be difficult. In a shtick that Dave Chappelle does on a Netflix special, he says, never get into a suffering comparison with a Jew. The Jew will always win, he says, because they will pull stuff out of their heads that go all the way back to Egypt. How can you compete with that kind of suffering? And of course, there's always the arguments that we know from the pains of the Spanish Inquisition and the Holocaust. Indeed, the Jewish community has a long history of oppression. And yet we should not engage in these aspects of comparing our pain and suffering with that of others. Just this morning, I was the recipient of an email that went out that was comparing these very ideas. One of the issues of suffering or injustice had to do with the behaviors a few months ago of quarterback Drew Brees, which brought scrutiny and backlash for his comments about taking a knee. And then just the other day, Deshaun Jackson, another football player, had reposted some comments that were anti-Semitic. I won't go into the details of either of these situations, but what resulted was this comparative suffering, this comparative reaction game, which is completely unnecessary. From the Jewish perspective, we are uniquely positioned to raise our voices of conscience and amplify voices that are reacting to injustice in this world. Because we have been schooled in oppression, we know not only how it feels, but we know how to react as a community. So rather than engaging in who suffers more, or which group, the Black community or the Jewish community, is getting more press, we are obligated, based on our values, we are obligated based on our history and our heritage. We are obligated, according to our commandments, to stand up whenever we see injustice being experienced, whether that injustice is directed against us or another group of people. So as in the future, you may receive some kind of comparative suffering argument, or some kind of excuse that we have more suffering than another, so we don't have the time or the energy to help. Toss those aside. Injustice in any form is injustice. And if we can work with those who are being oppressed, if we can link arms and march forward together for the causes of justice and mercy and truth in this world, we can indeed bring about a race for the future.